Show me your identification right now. You're violating community property. That's how my day started, a shriek so sharp it could split a fence post echoing across the morning hush of my Texas ranch. I looked up from my mug, and sure enough, there was Victoria Thornfield, Queen of the Sunset Valley Estates HOA, standing in my field, her hair not so much as ruffled from leaping my barbed wire fence. That look in her eyes, not just anger. It was the look of someone convinced they were catching a criminal. Me, apparently, with my coffee and cattle, enjoying a rare bit of peace since retiring. See, Victoria was the sort of neighbor who didn't just want to borrow a cup of sugar, she wanted to inventory your whole pantry. And she'd been riding me ever since she took over the HOA, always with new letters, new rules claiming my cattle were too close to her subdivision or my barn needed repainting. Now she was waving some massive rule binder in my face, demanding proof of ownership on land my grandfather bought when the rest of this place was still tumbleweeds. You ever had a neighbor like that, someone who acts like they own the ground you walk on just because they want to? Yeah. I can't be the only one. So I just smiled, put down my mug, reached for my wallet. And when she saw what I pulled out, not to humor her mind, but to bury her in paperwork, she went pale. That wasn't just a driver's license. That was my special city building inspector badge, the one that let me investigate code violations in a 5-mile radius, issued back when I was still cleaning up corrupt construction sites for a living. I'd kept it tucked behind an old photo, 3 generations of Castellanos, my Grandma Rosa's face in the middle, looking at me like she knew I'd need a reminder someday of why you never ever let bullies push you off your own land. Ranch life isn't just about grass and cows. It's about legacy. 60 years of sweat and sacrifice. My grandfather's dream, my grandma's labor. 5 kids raised. And now me, just trying to hold on to what's left. I thought retiring out here would buy me peace. Turns out it just made me the next target for the newest brand of HOA tyranny. Victoria, for all her talk, didn't know squat about the land or its history. Her HOA cooked up 8 months ago, probably in some HOA starter kit she ordered online. She started off with letters, paint violations, livestock, proximity, fence, height, you name it. But I'd never signed on to any of her rules. That morning when she started threatening legal authority, I just let her run her mouth and showed her the badge. That look on her face, yeah. She recognized the kind of trouble she'd just kicked up. But it wasn't just her rule book that caught my eye. When she bolted, she dropped a credit card, only it didn't match her name in the binder. Thornfield on the rules, but Thornburg on the card. Maybe a married name, or maybe she was up to something. My gut said the latter. And after years sniffing out fraud for a living, I trust my gut. I called up my old FBI contact, Agent Sarah Chin. She still owed me a favor after a city corruption case we worked a few years back. When I mentioned the name Victoria Thornburg, I could hear her sit up on the other end. That's when the twist started. Sarah told me Victoria was already on their radar. A lawyer in a major development bribery case lost her license, vanished. Popped up here running an HOA. Same tricks, different state. Land grabs, fake authority, forged court orders. Sarah warned me document everything. She'd make some calls about Victoria's HOA funding. I knew right then my quiet retirement was over. Old Pete, my neighbor, backed me up. He'd seen plenty in 30 years, developers, dirty judges, the works. He'd noticed Victoria name-dropping some Judge Patricia Wong who'd been signing off on crazy rulings lately, always for the developers, never the families. Pete had even started collecting court clippings, a habit from his days on the force. If Pete was worried, I knew I should be too. It all came to a head that week. Elena Rodriguez, the supposed vice president of the HOA, showed up on my porch one night shaking like a leaf. She confessed everything. Victoria, her own sister no less, wasn't out to build a better community. She was clearing families out for pinnacle development, forging documents, using her old legal contacts to grease the wheels. She even handed me a contract, my signature forged my ranch about to be sold for a fraction of its value. Elena gave me a flash drive, said it had everything: contracts, payment records, proof of fraud. Her last plea, if you can save her, do it. She's still my sister. That's the thing about power. It rots people, but sometimes it breaks them too. Next day, Victoria called an emergency HOA meeting at the community center. 40 people showed up, but half were strangers. She tried to put on a show photos of my ranch, accusations of environmental violations, fake complaints, even produced a court order for $80,000 in fines signed by Judge Wong, all designed to force me to sell or pay up. She wanted to crush me, publicly make an example. But I stood up, held up my badge, and let everyone see who I really was and who she really was. I called out the retroactive HOA, claims the fake jurisdiction, the mystery judge. Then a real neighbor piped up. I've lived here 23 years. When did this HOA get started? Suddenly the room turned. Her hired audience started slinking out. The real residents started asking questions, and Victoria, her voice got thin, her mask slipped. I hit her with the truth about her name and Pinnacle Development, and the room exploded. Her scam was crumbling. The next morning she tried one last play, an official-looking cease and desist letter suspending my credentials. But the agency it came from hadn't existed in decades. Her desperation was showing. I called Sarah. She said the feds were ready to move. Pinnacle was moving money, and things were about to go down. And wouldn't you know it, my son Tommy, who'd been working on a school project about local government corruption, found evidence that Judge Wong was getting paid by Pinnacle through a shell company. Sometimes it takes a 16-year-old with a laptop to find the smoking gun. With that, old Pete and I headed to Victoria's house, badges in hand, to do a real inspection. We found an unpermitted basement stuffed with files, maps, everything needed to run a statewide scam. That's when the lock clicked. Victoria had built herself a panic room, and now Pete and I were the ones trapped inside. She threatened us through the intercom, talked about warrants and frame jobs, but her voice, there was a wildness to it. For a minute, I thought Elena had double-crossed us, until she showed up at the top of the stairs looking like she'd aged 10 years overnight. She got us out, and upstairs the scene was chaos. Victoria trying to play the victim, Judge Wong looking icy, Elena caught in the middle. But Tommy had been recording everything, audio, video, the works. And as Victoria and Wong threatened us with legal ruin, sirens wailed outside. The FBI swept in, led by Sarah herself. Wong, Victoria, Elena, all arrested. Elena got off lighter. Her cooperation helped expose the scam, and she turned her experience into a force for good, starting a legal aid clinic for rural landowners. Victoria got 20 years, Wong 25. Pinnacle's whole land grab fell apart, and suddenly my porch was peaceful again. My ranch stayed with the family, the cattle still grazing at dawn, and I sat with Tommy, who turned the whole ordeal into a documentary that helped kick off federal hearings on land fraud. Every now and then I open that old wallet, see Grandma Rose's face, and remember her advice. Some fights you win with patience, grit, and knowing your rights. You stand your ground even when the world's stacked against you. So let me ask, ever, had someone try to push you off what's yours, hiding behind paperwork and threats? Share your story below. Because in the end, it isn't titles or banners that keep your home safe. It's standing up together, one story at a time. Let's hear your take. Where do you draw the line between community and control? And what would you do if someone tried to steal your legacy